man, Dan Orlovsky said this about Urban Meyer. He was like, the two things that made Urban Meyer successful as a coach when he was at Ohio State, the quarterback run and his ability to recruit. You can't really run the quarterback that often in the NFL, and you can't recruit. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master Football, back at it again. Happy Monday. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be up to date on all things college football, EA college football, pro football, Madden, anything related to that, you will appreciate this channel. Subscribe right now. It won't cost you anything. All it's going to cost you is being up to date on all those things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. Without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, guys, so it happened just like it did last year. Now, last year was it was overshadowed by some big hirings. You see Lincoln Riley on the Sunday last year after rivalry week, and then you see Brian Kelly on the Monday after. We could still see some news, and again, I'm filming this video at about 6 p.m. Mountain Time, so on Sunday. So we'll see how this is going to turn out because there could be some more names that drop. But however, it was Black Sunday for a couple jobs out there, and there's a couple positions out there that were filled. We're going to get into those right now. So here we are with the first one. It is David Shaw resigns after 12 seasons as Stanford football head coach from ESPN.com. And again, I'm betting here, if I had to put money on that Stanford was like, hey, what's going on here? I actually don't necessarily believe that. I'm remixing it in my brain now. What I think happened was that Stanford, I don't think that they have a very high priority of football right now. However, when you think about, David Shaw, he's been at the school for 12 years, just came off a loss to BYU. He said he thought about it, and then he decided he did not consider resigning until earlier this past week and said he has no desire to coach any other team at this point. I think he's pretty happy doing a lot of the stuff with the NFL Network for the draft and being an analyst. I think he has a pretty cushy job there. But you can see the fact he's done a really good job, 9-54 in his career record. But again, he's got his back-to-back 3-9 seasons and a 14-28 stretch since the start of 2019. Stanford is 3-16 in Pac-12 play the past two seasons, including consecutive losses to rival California. And that's weird because Cal is not necessarily an up football program right now, but Stanford has just been down. And there's a lot of complications with Stanford. It's one of the only universities that you have to apply and get accepted before they can offer you a scholarship. Any other place they can offer you a scholarship. Stanford, it's like, no. We need to see that you are able to be a Stanford student before we can offer you a scholarship. At least that's the way it was. And if it's not, correct anymore, get in the comments right now and let me know. But it's really interesting here. I have one name that I've been advocating for programs that have issues with recruiting, but still want a way to put themselves over the top. Stanford, one of those programs where you can see like it's one of those programs where because of their limitations, they have to make adjustments to how they recruit and how they play. As an example, all of the service academies, they all run the triple option. The reason why is because you don't really need super big linemen there. You just have to be consistent with it. And because it's hard to get, 6'7", 320-pound guys who are agile and good, can move their feet and strong, who want to go to the Air Force Academy and then give 4 years. Those guys are probably thinking, I'm going to go to the league. Whereas Stanford, what they did was Stanford was straight up just a Mexican boxer. They were not going to go left. They weren't going to go right. They were going to come straight at you. Heavy emphasis on the running game, lots of tight ends, smart quarterbacks, pocket passers back there. That was what they have done. And again, they don't go left. They don't go right. They're not a spread offense. They are an anti-spread. They're trying to narrow the field down, shorten the game up, and pound you. However, for Stanford, just hasn't gotten to the point to where they haven't had the results they've wanted on the field. I think David Shaw, it has run his course. He has run his course with them as a coach. Like I said, I think a coach, like me personally, I think Dave Clawson would do well there. I think Dave Clawson would do everywhere. I've been mentioning Dave Clawson from Wake Forest. The slow mesh, bring him out there. You got to spread. It's a little bit of a different maneuver out there. Wake Forest is a solid university too. So then I'm thinking out there, maybe Stanford. I know that they're not on the same level. Don't get me wrong, all the Stanford graduates. I know that Wake Forest is not on your level, but still, educational institution, have a way to overcome some of those recruiting deficiencies because you have, a unique offense like the slow mesh. But anyways, Dave Shaw resigns, 12 seasons with Stanford. We'll see what happens with them, man. Next one here is Tulsa, and Tulsa is in an interesting situation here. So they fired Coach Philip Montgomery after 8 seasons. And again, they actually had an upset win over Houston, but they've just decided that they're going to be moving in a different direction. So Tulsa, Tulane, who's having a pretty good season this year, Rice, they're just those programs that they're kind of in the heart of football land. However, they just have a hard time being consistently good, I think, because of those educational requirements. You know, again, private schools. You know, Rice is certainly up there. Tulsa's solid. You know, Tulane is really good too. So, kind of in the same spot with Stanford. You see, again, with that, Tulsa and Stanford just got rid of their head coaches. But you see, as an example, to like Vanderbilt, 5-7. They're almost 6-0, or almost 6-6. Almost went to a bowl game. But those really good educational institutions can't all be good at the same time. Notre Dame has certainly come back and done a lot better recently. Stanford has been down. I think that, again, private schools, private institutions, higher GPA requirements in a lot of instances, hard to be both good at the same time. That affects Tulsa, and that affects Stanford. Now, one here that does not have the educational requirements that those other schools have, that is actually was fired specifically because of the proximity close to really, really good football players, but the inability to bring them there and make a good program. You come down here and see this Jake Spavital from Texas State just got fired. He was 13-35 over 4 years and 4-8 in back-to-back seasons to end his tenure there. You come down here and you see what Don Coryell, not the same Don Coryell, not the Air Coryell, but you see the AD for Texas State say, I strongly believe that Texas State football can consistently win at a high level. We have some of college football's most passionate and generous fans and supporters. We have tremendous facilities. We are located in a hotbed of a football-driven communities and recruits. We are aligned in our vision for Texas State football, and we are working on providing the necessary resources to enable our student athletes and coaches to be successful. What he's basically saying is listen, here's the deal. We might not be Texas. We might not be Texas A&M or right next to them. There's no reason why any of those guys that just missed the cut that are close by with Texas and Texas A&M can't come here and do well. I think of Texas State kind of like Memphis, kind of like South Florida and Central Florida. I think a little bit about San Diego State too, where they're in recruiting hotbeds, but they're not the top product. But all you got to do in those instances is get a couple of those guys who are just a little bit overlooked by those big-time programs to come to you and make it a good program. However, Jake Spavital was not able to do that. He is out at Texas State. And now it's time to talk about the good ones here. So Wisconsin, for the longest time, had hired Paul Chryst. They bring in Cincinnati's Luke Fickell. So there's a couple different ways you can categorize a coach. Some of them are offensive gurus. I mean, I would probably put Josh McDaniels there. He's not, how do I say this? He has his shortcomings as a head coach. One thing he is not is he's not lacking innovation. Dave Clawson is probably an innovator. I think that Chip Kelly is kind of an innovator. And then you think of somebody like Luke Fickell. Luke Fickell is a program builder. Does a really, really good job there. He got hired over from Cincinnati to come over to Wisconsin. This is really interesting because I don't know necessarily if he's going to have a, I don't know if he's going to have a particular style of football he's going to play, so much as so as he's just a guy who built a good program, micromanages, does really well there, and puts his people in situations to be successful. You see the fact that he was, 57-18 in his 6 years at Cincinnati. His 2021 Bearcats went 13-0 before losing Alabama in the playoff semifinals as the first Group of 5 team to reach the CFP. Remember there, Sauce Gardner, they had Kobe Bryant. They had good corners. They actually were in that game for a lot longer than people suspected because he just runs a good program here, man. He runs a really, really good program. He's replacing Paul Chryst, who was fired in the middle of the season after going 67-26 in 8 seasons. So if you think about that, that's where it gets interesting here because Luke Fickell is not brought in to go 7-5 and 8-4. They're thinking this guy can take what he did at Cincinnati, what he did at Ohio State. I know he didn't have a great record while he was at Ohio State, but at the same time, what he's been able to do, said right here, the Bearcats had 9 players picked in the 2022 draft, which was third behind Georgia and LSU. And again, that take away all what you say, oh yeah, well, they had a soft schedule. That doesn't matter. NFL teams wanted Cincinnati players. NFL teams wanted Georgia players. NFL teams wanted LSU players. And NFL teams wanted Cincinnati players. He can do that. And again, Ohio State before, come to Cincinnati, over to Wisconsin. He's probably going to keep all of his same recruiting pipelines that he had going from there. So I like this hire. It's a really, really good hire in my perspective here. But, like I said, he's got to get back to work there because the fan base is expecting a lot. They're not wanting to go 7-5. They don't want to go 8-4. They want to push for Big Ten championships, even as UCLA and USC, well, potentially UCLA, come into the league in the future. The next one here is Arizona State hires Oregon's Kenny Dillingham as head coach. Kenny Dillingham. This is a really, really interesting story, and honestly, if he were to be swaggy about it, this would be one of the coolest stories ever. So He was the offensive coordinator, Kenny Dillingham, for Oregon. And again, they just had that drastic loss to Oregon State over the weekend, 38-34. Gave up 21 consecutive points. Really bad situation there. But he is a 2012 graduate of Arizona State and a native of Arizona. He's a former high school coach in the state as he started his career at Arizona State as an offensive assistant in 2014. He was wanting to play football, tore his ACL his senior year, decided he's like, I'm just going to be a coach, and has since absolutely positively skyrocketed up the ranks. He's 32 years old, and he's a former alumni of Arizona State, was a GA or an offensive assistant or so. He was like an assistant, a lower level assistant just a couple years ago, comes back, and now he's running the thing. We see on his Wikipedia page. So you see here, he is 32 years old. He's younger than your boy. He is the quarterback coach for 2007 to 2012 for Chaparral High School, and then he was the quarterback coach, or he was the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, and then he went to he met your boy Mike Norvell over there with Memphis, and then he went with him to Memphis, and then he stayed with Memphis, went to Auburn for a year, then he went to Florida State, and then he went back to Oregon, and now he went to Arizona State. So think about that. So he was 2014, he was at, or 2015, he leaves Arizona State. He was an offensive assistant, and now he's the head coach 8 years later. Absolutely astounding ascension for this guy. Really good. I think you see this with a lot of people out there. I'm a Boise State fan. Andy Avalos, former coach here, former player here. A lot of people like to keep that in the circle. They like to do sorts of things like that. There's certain times people will step out. You'll see Mike Leach will go to Mississippi State just because they want to hire an outsider or something like that. So you really see the fact that having that loyalty to the program, he's young, he's exciting. We'll see if he can recruit. That's the big thing here, because Arizona State, I'm telling you, it's so easy to recruit to Arizona State if you're a young man. It's so easy. If you can do that and bring a lot of those good players from Arizona and also go into Southern California, bring some of those players over as well, you're going to be really successful. We'll see if he does it. And then last but not least, and again, I know there's going to be more here, but Nebraska announces Matt Rule as the program's new head coach. Matt Rule was just with the Carolina Panthers, did not have a successful tenure there. However, I heard this about... Oh, man, Dan Orlovsky said this about Urban Meyer. He was like, the two things that made Urban Meyer successful as a coach when he was at Ohio State: the quarterback run and his ability to recruit. You can't really run the quarterback that often in the NFL, and you can't recruit. I mean, you can recruit free agents maybe, but free agents are not where you want to be spending your time if you're a coach. You want to be drafting well. So that was a big issue with Urban Meyer going to the NFL. Matt Rule was a program builder. And again, I'm not necessarily knowing if he's a big-time quarterback run guy or not, but I do know the fact that he is a program builder, and it's harder to do that because you're just a football coach in the NFL, whereas you're a football coach and you are a recruiter and program builder in college. Like I said before, he's a program builder. He had head coaching stops at Temple. Think about this. Started off there 2-10, and then 6-6, 10-4, and 10-3, and then left before the bowl game here, and then right here at Baylor. And this was not the very same year after Art Briles left, but the year after he left. So one additional year after he left. He goes 1-11, 7-6, and then 11-3, and then boom. Carolina Panthers are like, we see it. This guy can build a program up. We're going to take him here. And you can see the fact that when you come over here and check out what they've done, so this is Baylor's record year over here. So Art Briles has that whole situation, and we're not going to get into that. I'm not going to sit here and say this or that, but they're as AP high as number 2. He leaves. They go 7-6 with Jim Grobe, and then he leaves, and it looks like most of the players do too. And they go 1-11, 1-8. But think about this: 1-11, 7-6, 11-3. He brings it right back up. So a lot of those players who were with Art Briles, they probably leave, and then they lose a lot of those seniors. They lose a lot of players like that. They go down to 1-11. The program was in shambles, and he builds the program right back up. Dave Aranda does kind of the same thing too. He goes 2-7, and then he comes in here. He goes 12-2. 6-6 is not great this season. I actually do like David Aranda a lot, depending on what his buyout. I think he might be a name to watch out for a couple programs out there. But again, Matt Rule is known as being a program builder. Nebraska is. They're just, man. They had so many good things about them, but they just kept on coming up short in many different instances. So we'll see if Matt Rule can push them over the top. Again, they did not bring him in to go 6-6. They did not bring him in to go 7-5. Nebraska thinks they can win. And again, same thing with Wisconsin, because they're going to have USC and UCLA coming in pretty soon here. The Big Ten West right now is a little bit down, so there's kind of a power vacuum. I mean, Purdue just won it this year. No offense to Purdue. I don't think they can do that long term because, again, education requirements. But that's the situation with them right now. So Matt Rule coming to the Big Red. And there's a lot of other things that are going to happen here. I'm telling you right now, this is not the end of it. I'm telling you, by the time this video comes out, this could be outdated information on a lot of different things. Texas State could hire their guy. You can see the guy at Tulsa. Stanford can have a guy. We don't know, but I'm telling you, it's going to be fast. It's going to be moving quickly here. So stay tuned here because I'm going to bring you all the action and all the analysis. If you have any questions, get in the comments right now. I'd like to know what you think. What's your favorite hire? What's your most popular job you see out there? What new coaches do you think fit well? What don't? Get in the comments and let me know right now. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. I appreciate it. That's it for me, guys. I am out.